Right, so that's all the friendlies done and dusted. Let's see how it all went. And are we in fact ready for the new season? Stick around. Hey, hello friends, and welcome back to the Blue Pride of London. I'm your host Nathan, and it's an absolute joy to have you all here today. So if you have in fact discovered us just on a quick little whim, you've been surfing YouTube and you've come across us, and you do in fact like this content, it would mean so much to us if you do in fact subscribe to the channel. And if at any point you do in fact enjoy this video, it would mean also a lot to me if you would like it at any point, because it really does help. Yeah, guys, subscribe and like the video at any time. And yeah, let's get on with this video. So we're going to have a quick little look at the pre-season. It wasn't one of the most stylish or high-profile pre-seasons, mainly because of the COVID outbreak. So Chelsea didn't feel comfortable enough to do one of their typical sort of like football tours of Asia or Australia or North America. So we've kept it quite close to home, really. And yeah, we're going to have a quick little look to see if we are, in fact, at our peak condition going into the sort of the first big game, which is huge, really, up against Villarreal on the 11th of August for the Super Cup. And then also going into the season, which pretty much starts next weekend. So yeah, it's quite serious. So pre-season, what have we learned? What have we learned about our team? What have we learned about the players going forward? And has it really been much of a pre-season altogether? And our first game was a 6-1 victory over Peterborough behind closed doors. More of a training session rather than an actual sort of competitive friendly game. But Chelsea came out pretty much on top, which you would expect against Peterborough. There was, again, an awful lot of changes going on in this team. Throughout the game, I think the team that ended the game wasn't the team that started. I think we had 11 substitutes. A really good goal tally, really 6 goals altogether. Yeah, we conceded 1, but, that was later on in the second half. But yeah, Thomas Tuchel really sort of bled an awful lot of the sort of like young blood coming through the academy, just to sort of give them a bit of a run out. And shortly after that, there was a quick little trip over to Ireland, where we were supposed to have a game against an Irish team. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it didn't go ahead because of a COVID sort of case, so the game got cancelled. So there was sort of like a Chelsea versus Chelsea game, which ended in a 1-1. Really no sort of advertisement or sort of promotion behind this. And I think a 1-1 game would have been quite sort of significant, really, because at the end of the day, if one team ran away with it, you would probably ask questions over the team that lost, really, considering they were part of Chelsea as well. Those first 2 sort of pre-season friendly games, again, just trying to get the fitness back. But what you've got to also remember at this point as well, we didn't have a lot of our hard hitters. I think the majority of our main team were still on extended leave because obviously they were involved in the Euros. So these weren't really games that we were sort of like moving forward. When I was doing research for this particular video, I had to dig deep to make sure I got my stats correct for these 2 particular games, because they're not even on the 5th stand app classed as friendlies. So that brings us into the main 3 friendlies that we had leading up to the beginning of the season. So our first friendly game in front of fans was in fact against Bournemouth, and we beat them 2-1. It was a good game, it was quite a high tempo game, but again, it was a game where an awful lot of our first teamers weren't even involved in the squad, let alone returned back to training yet. And, Bournemouth really came out of the block sort of firing. They really wanted to see if they could not only go up against a Premier League team after recently being relegated, but, we are the champions in Europe. So, of course, they wanted to give it a go. Now, the goal that Bournemouth scored was a very, very good goal. And, he can sit there and say that, I scored against the champions of Europe. But again, there was an awful lot of changes within this game. I think Thomas Tuchel made around about 7 changes at half time. But a player that did in fact stand out during the first half, which really raised an awful lot of eyebrows, was Danny Drinkwater. He had a sensational 45 minutes for Chelsea, which is a sentence that you don't usually get to say often. Danny Drinkwater played well for Chelsea. He trended an awful lot on social media, and the 31-year-old sort of reveled in the limelight and potentially an opportunity to see if he does, in fact, have a career still at Chelsea. But there was an awful lot of good performances by our academy players, by players who were coming in out of the shadows. Ross Barkley was definitely playing for his career, and Tammy Abraham had a point to prove. He sort of said, I've been one of Chelsea's leading top goal scorers for the last 2 seasons. You don't want to play me. So he's either playing himself into a shop window saying, hey guys, come and get me. I'm available. I can score goals. It ended 2-1 and Chelsea sort of ran out as, quite significant winners on that game. Our next game was part of the Mind series. It was up against Arsenal and it was at the Emirates on the 1st of August. And again, it was a really, really high-tempo game, as you would expect from a London derby. Just because it's a friendly, in football, sometimes there's no such thing as a friendly, and Chelsea versus Arsenal is definitely one of those games. Again, there was an awful lot of changes in this game as well, and, can you really pinpoint any particular player performances? Yeah, Tammy Abraham scored the winner in the end because of a bit of a mix-up with the Arsenal defence. But Arsenal played very, very well in this game, as well did Chelsea. Obviously, I wasn't jumping up in my seat because I knew it was just a friendly. And in the day, I was watching players who I didn't sort of recognise in some of the sort of shirts. I was sort of like on my phone, Googling them or checking the team sheet to see, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. Okay, cool, he's actually pretty good. I quite like that. And then the other game, part of the Mind series, which was played on the 4th of August, was against Tottenham. Again, it was an awful lot of changes. Yes, we saw a return of a few of our first teamers in these last 2 games with the Mind series. The Germans came back and Kai Havertz scored a really brilliant goal in the game against Arsenal. And Hakim Ziyech scored a sensational goal against Tottenham with a brilliant sort of like tackle by N'Golo Conte, who sort of freed up the ball and he just sort of ran down the centre of midfield. Timo Werner sort of like went off to the right-hand side to create a little bit of space, and he was ushered to sort of shoot the ball ahead, and a brilliant goal in the first half. Scored again in the second half, but we had an awful lot of changes. I'm going to say that quite a lot because I think that's quite significant in the overall performance that we have had in our pre-season games, where, Tottenham found their way coming back. They didn't make as many changes as Chelsea done, and that's it. Those were our 4 pre-season friendlies. Yeah, the games against Arsenal and Tottenham, they are at the high level of the Premier League, so I was quite looking forward to those type of games. Bournemouth have always been quite a difficult team for us to break down. I think they have beaten us a couple of times in recent years, and yeah, they had a point to prove. They wanted to show that they were still a good team, regardless that they were sort of relegated recently. But what does this say about our season going forward? And let's have a little look into that, shall we? So what have we learned from our friendlies? To be honest, not a lot. If you really look at what Chelsea are bringing to the table, you expect to beat Bournemouth, you expect to beat Peterborough, you expect to beat Arsenal and Tottenham, especially in pre-season friendlies. There isn't a lot to look at, especially with all the changes. Like, we've not had our first full team out on any of these games. Mason Mount hasn't played yet, Jorginho hasn't played yet, Thiago Silva hasn't played yet. So there's a high possibility that these 3 players will be coming into the Chelsea team for our first major game of the season on the 11th of August against Villarreal in the Super League Cup, which means their last game that Mount and Jorginho would have played would have been the Euros final. And they would have had their rest, they would come back training. So would Thomas Tuchel sort of risk them to play in that particular game? Yeah, it is a cup game, and it's a game that we lost a couple of seasons ago against Liverpool on penalties. So, is that something that's going to be risked? These players, they are sort of like the heart and soul of the Chelsea midfield. Will they actually be ready for the season coming up? At the end of the road, we're not the only team to suffer this way. There have been a lot of players from sort of Man United and Man City who have also had players on sort of like an extended leave. So we're not the only team that are on this same type of boat. Maybe some of the teams in the lower end of the Premier League will have a bit of an advantage because they've had their players back for longer. They've been able to gel longer. So we don't know. The start of the season, is coming fast. So it could really sort of depend on how fit our players are. What is also going to be interesting to see as well is that, it looks like we're going to stick to the 3 at the back. with the two wing backs going either side, and he's tried putting Callum Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic in those positions to give a little bit of width. So maybe there's a little bit of tinkering going on there, but it looks like the three defenders are the way going forward into next season. We still haven't signed anybody yet. That is the big thing going on here. Jack Grealish has currently become Britain's first £100 million sign-in for Man City. They've made a big significant move into the market. So has Manchester United, and also Arsenal signing Ben White, which I think is actually quite a decent sign-in for £50 million as well. But Chelsea are still holding out for the two players that they really, really want. They want a striker. Currently, Lukaku is the front runner because it looks like Haaland is just a little bit too far away from us. So next summer is going to be extremely interesting with him, and also this defender that we are after as well. So for this preseason, I don't think I've learned anything from Chelsea. I think we are still in the same position that we were last season, which at the end of the day, we ended as champions of Europe last season and in 4th place. So I can't really argue with that, but we haven't improved our team or as a function either. Like I said, I expected to win these 4 games in pre-season. So what are we looking at next season? Our team's still going to look at us and go, well, this is that, that's the other. Maybe some of the players who have come away from loan could maybe start or have a part in next season, like Ross Barkley, Danny Jinkwater, Michy Batshuayi. Maybe these are the type of players that could sort of develop as big-time players within next season. Don't need to improve our team that much. We have a sensational attacking-minded, defensive-minded, expensive team. So we only need those 1 or 2 changes. We need a goal scorer. We all know we need a goal scorer because we created a lot of chances in these games, and there was just never somebody there to sort of finish him up. I remember seeing Tammy Abraham going absolutely ballistic at Michy Batshuayi because he wanted him to sort of come in. It would have been a perfect goal. So I don't know. I'm not thrilled by our pre-season, but I do understand that we are still getting ready to be better. And I think just signing a striker is definitely the someone who can score 20, 30 goals in a season is definitely the biggest step that we're going for. Who knows? Maybe later on today, I might have to do another video about signing one of these players, but we'll just have to see. But guys, I hope you've enjoyed the football. I hope you are looking forward to the new season. Wednesday the 11th is the big game. Let's hope we can bring home some silverware. But guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I will see you later.